Hi all, I'm Pushp Sirohi and back with a lecture on the first step of Râja-Yoga. Let's enjoy. Râja-Yoga is divided into 8 steps. The first is Yama, non-killing, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence, and non-receiving of any gifts. Next is Niyama, cleanliness, contentment, austerity, study, and self-surrender to God. Then comes to Âsana or posture, Prânâyâma or control of Prâna, Pratyâhâra or a restraint of the sense from their, their objects, Dhârana or fixing the mind on a spot, Dhyâna or meditation, and Samâdhi or superconsciousness. The Yama is Niyama as we see our moral training. Without these are the basic, no practice of yoga will succeed. As these two become established, the yogi will become to realize the fruit of his practice. Without these, it will never bear fruits. A yogi must not think of injuring anyone by thought, words, or deed. Mercy shall not be for man alone, but shall go beyond and embrace the whole world. The next step is asana, posture, a series of exercises, physical and mental, is to be gone through every day until certain higher states are reached. Therefore, it is quite necessary that we should find a posture in which we can remain long. That posture, which is the easiest for one, should be the one chosen. For thinking, a certain postures may be very easy for one man, while to another it may be very difficult. We will find later on that during the study of these psychological matters, and a good deal of activity goes on the body. So nerve currents will have to be displaced and given a new channel. New sorts of vibrations will begin. The whole constitution will remodeled as it were. But the main part of the activity will lies along the spinal column. So that the one thing necessary for the posture is to hold the spinal column free. Sitting erect, holding the three parts, the chest, neck, and head in a straight line. Then the whole weight of the body be supported by the ribs, and then you have an easy natural posture with the spine straight. You will easily see that you cannot think very high thoughts with the chest in. This portion of the yoga is a little similar to the Hatha Yoga, which deals entirely with the physical body. It aims being to make the physical body very strong. We have nothing to do with it here because its practices and very difficult and cannot be learned in a day, and after all do not lead to much spiritual growth. Many of these practices you will find in D. Delcerate and other teachers, such as placing the body in a different postures, but the objects in these is physical, not psychological. There is not one muscle in the body over which a man cannot establish a perfect control. The heart can be made to stop or go on at his bidding, and each part of the organism can be similarly controlled. The result of this branch of yoga is to make men live long. Health is the chief idea. The one goal of the Hatha yogi, he is determined not to fall sick, and he never does. He lives long, 100 years is nothing to him. He is quite young and fresh when he is 150 without one hair turned grey. But that is all. A banyan tree lives sometimes 5,000 years. But it is a banyan tree and nothing more. So if a man live long, he is the only a healthy animal. One or two ordinary lessons of the Hatha Yogi are very useful. For instance, some of you will find it to a good thing for a headache to drink cold water through the nose as soon as you get up in the morning. The whole day your brain will be nice and cool and you will never catch cold. It is very easy to do, but your nose into the water, draw it up through the nostrils and make a pump action in the throat. After one has learned to have a firm erect seats, one has to perform, according to certain schools, a practice called the purifying of the nerves. This part has been rejected by some as not belonging to Raja Yoga, but as so great an authority as in a commentator, Sankhya advised it, I think fit that it should be mentioned, and I will quote him own directions from his commentary on the Shweta Shwastra. Upanishad, the mind whose dross has been cleared away by pranayam, become fixed in Brahman. Therefore, pranayam is declared. First, the nerves are to be purified, then comes the power to practice pranayam, stopping the right nostril with the thumb. Through the left nostril, fill in air according to the capacity, then without any interval, through the air out through the right nostril, closing the left one. Again, inhaling through the right nostril, eject through the left according to the capacity. Practicing this 3 or 5 times at 4 hours of the day, before dawn, during midday, in the evening, and at midnight. In 15 days or a month, purity of the nerves is attained. Then begins pranayama. Practice is absolutely necessary. You may sit down and listen to me by the hour every day, but if you do not practice, you will not get one step further. It all depends on practice. We never understand these things until we experience them. We will have to see and feel them for ourselves. Simply listening to explanations and theories will not do. There are several obstructions to practice. The first obstruction is an unhealthy body. If the body is not a fit state, the practice will be obstructed. Therefore, we have to keep the body in good health. We have to take care of what we eat and drink and what we do. Always use a mental effort, what is usually called Christian science, to keep the body strong. This is all. Nothing further of the body. We must not forget the health is the only means to an end. If health were at the end, we would be like animals. Animals rarely become unhealthy. The second obstruction is doubt. We always feel doubtful about things we do not see. Man cannot live upon words. However, he may try, so doubt comes to us as to whether there is any truth in these things or not. Even the best of us will doubt sometimes. With practice, with a few days, within few days, a little glimpse will come, enough to give one encouragement and hope. As a certain commentator on yoga philosophy says, when one proof is obtained, however little that may be, it will give us faith in the whole teaching of the yoga. For instance, of the first week, month of practice, if you will begin to find you can read another's thoughts, they will come to you in picture form. Perhaps you will hear something happening at a long distance. When you concentrate your mind with a wish to hear, these glimpses will come by little bits at first, but enough to give you faith and strength and hope. For instance, if you concentrate your thoughts on the tip of your nose, in a few days you will begin to smell most beautiful fragrance, which will be enough to show that there are certain mental perceptions that can be made obvious without the contact of physical objects. But we must always remember that these are the only the means. The aim, the end, the goal of all this training is liberation of the soul, absolute control of nature, and nothing short of it must be the goal. We must be the masters and not the slaves of nature. Neither body nor mind must be our master, nor must we forget that the body is mine and not I the body's. A god and a demon went to learn about the self from a great sage. They studied with him for a long time. At last, the sage told them, "You yourself are the being you are seeking." Both of them thought that their bodies were in the self. They went back to their people quite satisfied and said, "We have learned everything that was to be learned. Eat, drink, and be merry. We are the self. There is nothing beyond us." The nature of demon was ignorant, clouded, so he never inquired any further, but was perfectly content with the idea that he has God, that by the self what was meant the body. The God has purer nature. He at first committed the mistakes of thinking I this body and Brahman. So keep it strong and health and well dressed and give it all sort of enjoyments. But in few days he found out that could not be the meaning of the sage, their master. There must be something higher. So he can come back and said, "Sir, did you teach me that this body was the self? If so, I see all bodies die. The self cannot die." The sage said, "Find it out. Thou art that." Then the god thought that the vital force which worked the body were what the sage mean, but after the time he found that if he ate, these vital force remained strong, but if he starved, they become weak. The god then went back to the sage, said, Sir, do you mean the vital force are the self? The sage said, Find out for yourself, thou art that. The god returned home once more, thinking that it was the mind, perhaps that was the self, but in the short, while he saw the thoughts were so various, now good, again bad, the mind was too changeable to be the self. He went back to the sage and said, Sir, I don't think that the mind is the self. Did you mean that? No, replies the sage, thou art that. Find out for yourself. The god went home and at last found that he was the self, beyond all thought, one without birth or death, whom the sword cannot pierce or the fire burn, whom the air cannot dry or the water melt, the beingless and endless, the immovable, the intangible, the omniscient, the omnipotent being, that is, what's neither the body nor the mind, but beyond them all. So he was satisfied, but the poor demon did not get the truth, owing to his fondness for the body. This world has a good many of these demonic natures, but there are some gods too. If one proposes to teach any science to increase the power of sense enjoyment, one find multitudes ready for it. If one undertakes to show the supreme goal, one find few to listen to him. Very few have the power to grasp the eye. Fewer still the patience to attain to it. But there are few also who know that even if the body can be made to live for 1,000 years, the results in the end will be the same. When the forces that hold it together go away, the body must fall. No man was ever born who could stop his body one moment from changing. Body is the name of series of changes. As in a river, the masses of water are changing before you have a moment, and new masses are coming, yet taking similar forms. So is it with this body? Yet the body must be kept strong and healthy. It is the best instrument we have. The human body is the greatest body in the universe, and the human being is the greatest being. Man is the higher than all animals, than all angels. None is the greater than man. Even the devas will have to come down again and attain to salvation through a human body. Man alone attains to perfection. Not even the devas, according to the Jews and Mohammedans. God created man after creating the angels and everything else. And after creating man, he asked the angels to come and salute him. And all did so except Iblis. So God cursed him and he became Satan. Behind this allegory is the great truth that this human birth is the greatest birth we can have. The lower creation, the animal is dull, manufactured mostly out of tamas. Animals cannot have any high thoughts, nor can the angels or devas attain to direct freedom without human birth. In human society, in the same way, too much wealth or too much poverty is great impediment to the higher development of the soul. It is the form, the middle class that the great ones of the world come. Here is the force are very equally adjusted and balanced. Returning to our subject, we come next to Prânâyâma, Prana, controlling the breathing. What has that to do with concentrating the power of the mind? Breath is like the free fly wheels of the machine, the body. In a big engine, you find the flywheels first moving, and that motion is conveyed to the finer and finer machinery until the most delicate and finest mechanism in the machine is in motion. The breathe is that flywheel, supplying and regulating the motive powers to everything in this body. There was once a minister to a great king. He fell into disgrace. The king, as a punishment, ordering him to be shut up in the top of a very high tower. This was done, and the minister was left there to perish. He has a faithful wife, however, who come to the tower at a night and called to her husband at the top to know what she could do to help him. He told her to return to the tower following night and bring with her a long rope, some shout twine, packed thread, silk thread, a beetle, and a little honey. Wondering much the good wife obeyed her husband and brought him the desired articles. Then husband directed her to attach the silken thread firmly to be beetle, then to this smear its horns with a drop of honey, and to see it free of the wall of the tower and its head pointing upward. She obeyed all these instructions, and the beetle started on its long journey, smelling the honey ahead to a slowly crept onward in the hope of reaching the honey until at the last it reached on the top of the tower. When the minister grasped the beetle and got possession of the silken thread, he told his wife to tie the other end to the packed thread. And after he had drawn up the packed thread, he repeated the process with the stout twine and lastly with the rope. Then the rest was easy. The minister descended from the tower by means of the rope and made his escape. In this body of ours, the breath motion is the silken thread. By laying hold of and learning to control it, we grasp the packed thread of the nerve currents, and from these the stout twin of our thoughts, and lastly the rope of the prana controlling which we reach freedom. We do not know anything about our own bodies. We cannot know. At best, we can take a dead body and cut it into a pieces. And there are some who can take a live animal and cut it in pieces in order to see what is inside the body. Still, that's nothing to do with our own body. We know very little about them. Why do we not? Because our attention is not discriminating enough to catch the very fine movements that are going on within. We can know of them only when the mind becomes more subtle and enters and it were deeper into the body. To get the subtle perception, we have to begin with the grosser perceptions. We have to get hold of which is setting the whole engine in motion. That is the prana, the most obvious manifestations of which is the breathe. Then, along with the breathe, we shall slowly enter the body, which will enable us to find out about the subtle forces, the nerve currents that are moving all over the body. As soon as we perceive and learn to feel them, we shall begin to get control over them and over the body. The mind is also set in motion by these different nerve currents. So, at the last, we shall reach the state of perfect control over the body and the mind, making both our servants. Knowledge is power. We have to get this power, so we must begin at the beginning with pranayam, restraining the prana. This pranayam is a long subject and will take several lessons to illustrate it thoroughly. We shake it apart by part. We shall gradually see the reason for each exercise and what forces in the body are set in motion. All these things will come to us, but it requires constant practice. And the proof will come by practice. No amount of reasoning which I can give you will be proof to you until you have demonstrated it for yourself. As soon as you begin to feel these current emotions all over you, doubt will vanish. But it requires hard practice every day. You must practice at least twice every day, and the best time are toward the morning and the evening when night passes into day and the day into night. A state of relative calmness ensues. The early morning and the early evening are the two periods of calmness. Your body will have a like tendencies to become calm at those times. We should take advantage of that natural condition and begin and then to practice. Make it a rule not to eat until you have practiced. If you do this, the sheer force of hunger will break your laziness. In India, they teach children never to eat until they have practiced or worshipped, and it becomes natural to them after a time. A boy will not feel hungry until he has bathed and practiced. Those of you who can afford it, it will do better to have a room for this practice alone. Do not sleep in that room. It must be kept holy. You must not enter the room until you have bathed and are perfectly clean in the body and mind. Place flower in that room always. They are the best surrounding for a yogi. Also, pictures are that are pleasing. Burn incense morning and evening. Have no quarreling nor anger nor unholy thoughts in that room. Only allow those persons to enter it who are of the same thoughts as you. Then gradually there will be an atmosphere of holiness in the room, so that when you are miserable, sorrowful, doubtful, or your mind is disturbed, the very fact of entering that room will make you calm. This was the idea of a temple and the church, and in some temples and churches you will find it even now. But in the majority of them, the very idea has been lost. The idea is that by keeping holy vibration, there is the place becomes and remains illuminati. Those who cannot afford to have a room set apart and can practice anywhere they like. Sit in the straight posture, and the first thing to do is to send a current of holy thought to all creations. Mentally repeat: let all beings be happy, let all beings be peaceful, let all beings be blissful. So do the east, south, north, and west. The more do you do that, the better you will feel yourself. You will find at least that the easiest way to make ourselves healthy is to see that others are healthy. And the easiest way to make ourselves happy is to see that others are happy. After doing that, those who believe in God should pray. Not for the money, not for the health, nor for heaven. Pray for knowledge and light. Every other prayer is selfish. Then the next thing to do is to think of your own body and see that it is strong and healthy. It is the best instrument you have. Think of it as being as strong as adamant, and that with the help of this body, you will cross the ocean of life. Freedom is never to be reached by the weak. Throw away all weakness. Tell your body that it is strong. Tell your mind that it is strong. And have unbounded faith and hope in yourself. Thank you guys. Hope you like it.